Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. I still remember the first time Evelyn mentioned the spa. "It's like stepping into heaven," she said one evening, her face glowing as she sipped her tea. "The massages are magical, and the facials? Oh, my skin hasn't felt this good in years." Evelyn wasn't the kind of person to indulge in luxuries often. She was practical, down to earth, and careful with money. So when she started going to the local spa every other week, I didn't think much of it. "It's just stress relief, you know," she'd explained one Friday night when I commented on her sudden spa enthusiasm. "Work's been crazy, and this helps me unwind." I nodded, happy that she had found something that made her feel good. Marriage is about supporting each other, right? Little did I know, I was unknowingly funding my wife's secret betrayal. It was about 3 months into her spa routine when I noticed a subtle change in Evelyn. She seemed lighter, happier even. Not that I was complaining, but it was strange. "You're glowing these days," I teased her one evening while we were watching a show. She smiled, brushing it off. "It's the spa treatments. David is incredible at what he does." "David?" I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, my therapist. He's a pro, Greg. Honestly, he could be a miracle worker." I chuckled, not giving it much thought. After all, a good massage therapist would need skill to be in high demand. But her mentioning his name left a small nagging itch in the back of my mind. Soon enough, Evelyn started going to the spa more frequently, every week now instead of every other. She'd come home looking flushed, her hair tousled, and her mood jubilant. One evening, as I was watching TV, I casually asked, "So what's so great about this David guy?" "Oh, he's just really good at what he does," she replied, her voice a little too cheerful. "You should try it sometime. He's very professional." I laughed. "I think I'll stick to my regular workouts for stress relief. Besides, a spa isn't really my thing." "Suit yourself," she said, quickly changing the topic. The itch in my mind grew stronger. It wasn't just the frequency of her visits that bothered me. It was how Evelyn started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets. She'd smile at her screen when she thought I wasn't looking, and if I walked into the room, she'd lock it instantly. One Sunday morning, while she was in the shower, I noticed her phone buzzing on the nightstand. "Hey, Evelyn, looking forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Last week was incredible." The sender? David. I felt my stomach twist. I told myself it could be innocent. Therapists build rapport with their clients. Maybe he was talking about her massage progress or something. But the phrasing, it didn't sit right. I decided not to say anything just yet. Instead, I started paying closer attention. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn's behavior grew more suspicious by the day. The spa visits weren't just a part of her routine anymore. They had become her obsession. She'd leave the house in a rush, dressed more carefully than usual. Tight jeans, a flattering top, just enough makeup to look effortlessly stunning. When I asked why she was getting so dressed up for a spa appointment, she waved it off. "Oh, come on, Greg. I just want to look good. Is that a crime?" The laughter in her voice sounded hollow. It wasn't just her appearance that changed. She'd come home later and later, sometimes hours after her usual time, with flimsy excuses about the sessions running long. "David's been incredible," she gushed one night over dinner, pushing her salad around with her fork. "He really knows how to work through my tension. He spent extra time on my shoulders today, can't you tell?" I could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air. There was a subtle challenge in them, daring me to question her. "Oh, so he's doing overtime now?" I joked, my voice light, though my stomach churned. She laughed, but it wasn't the carefree laugh I used to know. It felt tight, forced. "Something like that," she said, busying herself with her plate. Her avoidance only made my suspicions grow. That Tuesday, Evelyn announced she'd be heading to the spa for a long session. "David says it's good to work through all the problem areas at once," she explained as she grabbed her keys. "It might take a while, so don't wait up." She kissed me on the cheek before she left, but it felt mechanical, like she was checking a box. After she pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my jacket and followed her. I stayed a few cars behind as she drove to the spa, my heart pounding in sync with the ticking of the turn signal. When she parked, I pulled into a spot just across the street, positioning myself where I had a clear view of the entrance. From my vantage point, I could see Evelyn step out of her car, her posture light, almost carefree. Through the spa's large glass windows, I watched her approach the reception desk. She greeted the receptionist with a smile that was far too bright, far too intimate, like she wasn't just a regular client. It wasn't the smile she came home with, that weary grin meant for me. Moments later, she disappeared into the back. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. I told myself to stay calm, to give her the benefit of the doubt. But deep down, a part of me knew. Whatever was happening in there, it wasn't just a massage. I checked the time and settled in, determined to wait as long as it took. 15 minutes turned into 30, then an hour. Nothing unusual so far. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, as the clock neared 8 p.m., she reappeared. And she wasn't alone. David followed her out into the parking lot. He was tall, muscular, and confident, the kind of guy who could charm anyone with just a smile. He walked close to her, his hand grazing her lower back as they talked. Evelyn turned to him, her face lit up with laughter. It wasn't the kind of laugh she had with me anymore. I felt a sinking sensation in my stomach as I watched what happened next. David leaned in closer, brushing a stray hair from her face with a tenderness that felt like a dagger to my chest. Evelyn glanced around nervously, her eyes darting across the parking lot as if checking for witnesses. And then, she kissed him. It wasn't a fleeting kiss or a friendly peck. It was deliberate, passionate. Her hands slid up to his shoulders as their lips lingered, the kind of kiss that screamed intimacy and familiarity. When they finally broke apart, they smiled at each other like they were sharing a private joke. As if to seal whatever was unspoken between them, Evelyn leaned in and hugged him. Her arms wrapped around his waist, his around hers, holding her close in an embrace that seemed to stretch into eternity. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, a cold sweat forming on my forehead. This wasn't just a professional relationship. This wasn't just a massage therapist helping a client. This was betrayal, laid bare before my eyes. I sat in my car, the weight of the scene pressing down on me. My instincts screamed at me to storm over there, to demand answers, to tear this fantasy world Evelyn and David had built apart. But something held me back. A part of me wanted to gather more evidence, to be absolutely certain before I unleashed the fury brewing inside me. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of them embracing. As the flashless click captured the incriminating hug, I felt a strange sense of clarity. It wasn't anger, it was determination. But just as I lowered my phone, they leaned in again. David cupped her face and Evelyn tilted her head toward him. Their lips met once more, even more passionately this time, as if the world around them didn't exist. My heart pounded in my ears as I raised the phone again. I snapped another picture, this time of their kiss. The screen confirmed the betrayal I could barely process. Evelyn, my wife, locked in a kiss with another man, her hands tangled in his hair like she'd forgotten everything else, including me. The second photo became my damning evidence. It was no longer about suspicion. I had proof of their betrayal in the palm of my hand, and now there would be no hiding from the truth. That night, Evelyn came home as if nothing had happened. "Hey, honey," she called out, dropping her bag by the door. "Sorry I'm late. The session ran a little long." I was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone. "Long, huh? Must have been an intense massage." She hesitated for a fraction of a second before replying. "Yeah, David really worked on my shoulders tonight. I feel so much better." I forced a smile. "That's great, Evelyn. You deserve to feel good." Her relief was almost palpable as she walked into the kitchen. Over the next few days, I played the part of the oblivious husband, but inside, I was a storm brewing. I booked an appointment at the spa for myself, requesting David specifically. When the day arrived, I showed up early, my heart pounding as I stepped into the sleek modern lobby. The receptionist, a bubbly young woman, greeted me with a rehearsed cheerfulness. "You must be Greg. David will be with you shortly." I thanked her and sat in the waiting area, my jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. Every sound, every laugh, every whisper set my nerves on edge. Finally, David appeared, dressed in a crisp polo shirt with the spa's logo embroidered on the chest. He smiled warmly, the kind of smile that probably charmed dozens of clients every day. "Greg, nice to meet you. Ready to get started?" "Oh, I've been ready for a while," I replied, standing up and shaking his hand. He led me to a private room, dimly lit and filled with the calming scent of lavender. As he sat up, I couldn't help but notice the ease in his movements, the practiced charm in his demeanor. "So, David said as he arranged the oils on the counter. Any particular areas you want me to focus on today? I leaned back in the chair, crossing my arms. Actually, yes. My shoulders have been feeling a bit tense lately. You're the expert, right? He chuckled. That's what they tell me. Good, I said, my tone sharpening. Then maybe you can explain how you've been loosening up my wife's shoulders too. David froze, his hand hovering over a bottle of oil. Slowly, he turned to face me, his confident mask slipping. Excuse me, he said, trying to play dumb. Oh, don't act like you don't know, I said, standing up. My voice was steady, but the anger simmered just below the surface. Evelyn, my wife. The one you've been hugging and kissing in the parking lot after your sessions. His face turned pale. Look, man, it's not what you think. Save it, I snapped, cutting him off. I've seen enough. And now, I'm here to make sure everyone else knows the kind of man you really are. I stormed out of the room, heading straight to the reception area. David followed, his voice low and panicked. Greg, wait. Let's talk about this privately. Why? You didn't care about privacy when you were groping my wife, I shouted, loud enough for everyone in the spa to hear. The receptionist's jaw dropped, and the handful of clients waiting in the lobby turned to stare. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, my voice echoing through the room, if you're here for a professional massage, you might want to reconsider. This guy? I pointed at David, who stood frozen, his face a mixture of anger and shame. He doesn't just loosen muscles, he loosens wedding vows too. Gasps rippled through the room as David tried to stammer out a defense. And in case anyone doubts me, I added, pulling out my phone, here's some proof of his so-called professionalism. With a few swipes, I displayed the photos I had taken, first of Evelyn and David hugging, then the damning picture of them kissing in the parking lot. I held the phone high, turning so everyone in the lobby could see the images. A woman near the counter gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Another client shook his head in disgust, muttering under his breath. The receptionist looked horrified, her gaze fixed on the screen as if unable to look away. You don't deserve to be in this business, I said, stepping closer to him. And as for Evelyn, I'll deal with her next. When Evelyn walked through the door that evening, she froze as soon as she saw me sitting at the dining table. I had printed the photos of her and David from my phone, and they were spread out in front of me, evidence of everything I'd feared but never wanted to believe. She took a hesitant step forward, her voice shaking. What's going on, Greg? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I picked up the photos, one by one, and held them in front of her face. What is this, Evelyn? I asked, my voice colder than I thought possible. Her eyes filled with panic as she glanced at the pictures, her lips trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she stammered. It was a mistake. It meant nothing. I stood up, suddenly towering over her. The rage that had been simmering inside me finally erupted. A mistake? A mistake doesn't happen in the shadows, Evelyn. A mistake doesn't involve repeated lies and secret meetings. Her shoulders slumped as she started to sob, tears streaming down her face. Please, Greg. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. The anger surged inside me like a tidal wave, and I knew it was time to end this. Without a word, I walked over to the drawer and pulled out our marriage certificate, holding it in my hands. For a moment, it felt like it weighed nothing, like it was just a piece of paper, far less significant than the years we'd spent together. Then, without hesitation, I tore it in half. The sharp sound of the paper ripping echoed through the quiet room, as final as any sentence. Her eyes widened in horror. Greg, no, please. What are you doing? This marriage is over, I said, my voice steady, colder than I had ever heard it. I'm filing for divorce. The words hung in the air, their weight heavier than anything I'd ever said to her. She staggered back, as though the force of my actions had knocked the air from her lungs. Greg, no, she whispered, but I didn't wait for her to finish. I turned and walked toward the door, leaving her standing there, surrounded by the shattered remnants of everything we once had. The fallout was swift. I filed for divorce within the week, determined not to let Evelyn's betrayal define the rest of my life. As for David, word spread quickly about the incident at the spa. The management let him go and clients vanished like smoke. Evelyn begged me to reconsider, to give her another chance. But some things can't be undone. Trust, once shattered, is almost impossible to rebuild. After the divorce, I took the house, a quiet reminder of everything that had fallen apart. Evelyn moved in with David, but 6 months later, I heard that Evelyn and David had broken up. She was alone now. As for me, life moved forward. I started new projects, reconnected with old friends, and rediscovered a piece I thought I'd lost forever. In the end, I realized that sometimes the hardest losses lead to the greatest gains. And with that, I finally understood. The past was behind me, and a new chapter was ready to unfold. Thank you for watching.